Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are diving into an exciting topic that's been on my mind lately. It's called feature flag, and we are going to explore how you can leverage an open source gem called FF4J to level up your development game. Now I know it's been a hot minute since the last video, but hey, I have been knee deep in some seriously cool stuff. Just recently I had the honor of presenting a technical talk at Developer Week in sunny California. It was a blast, but it kept me on my toes and I could not wait to bring some of that energy back to our own channel. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the world of feature flags and learn about some nitty-gritty details about FF4J, trunk-based development, and how to unlock some serious potential here. Alright, let's begin. So this was my original slide that I shared at Developer Week. I have added I think barely one or two extra slides in there because I only had 50 minutes to go over the demo as well as explain what is a feature flag. But because it is my own show, my own recording, I am going to be providing much more detail. If you have attended that, you would have seen that some of the places I had to skim through. But over here you are in luck because I'll be going in detail about every single topic. Let's understand what is a feature first. A feature is nothing but a fancy name for a requirement. It could be anything. A requirement can be a business requirement or it could be a technical requirement. Think of a feature not as just a simple configuration or an update in your properties file where you want to just update a value of a property from X to Y. It'll be anything that your business has asked you to do or your technical manager asked you to do, right? So let's take a simple example where business and technical come and meet at a juncture. Say you are a company that is about to launch a new promotion where you are offering $300 discount or a $500 discount to a customer if they sign up for your service. Now what is involved over here? Somebody has to go and make a visual change, maybe a banner or maybe a poster on your main website which tells you that a $300 promo will be assigned to your product or assigned to your subscription if you sign up right now, and this promo will end on say January 31st. So over here the changes has to be made in the front end, but also on the back end you need to make sure that if the date is between January 1st and January 31st, whatever the subscription cost is, you're going to subtract that cost. So there's some form of logic that is happening in the back end as well. So you have a mix of requirement where you have a business requirement for the front end and you have a technical requirement that you need to take care in the back end. So this is a wholesome form of a feature that you're trying to build. Now, if you go and search for feature flag, you would come across various terms such as feature toggle or flips or feature controls or feature configuration. They're all same. They all come to the same term as feature toggling, and all of these, what they basically do is they help you build a conditional feature branch in the code to make your logic available to a certain group of people or certain group of users based on some given conditions, and it allows you to turn on and off a feature at any given point of time. All right, now that you know what is a feature, let's understand what is a feature toggle. This is the most challenging part of this video, of this lesson. If you understand this one particular thing, you can just turn the video off, jump to the next video. You don't have to watch this anymore. So the most complicated piece of feature toggling, of this whole essence of this video, is what is a feature toggle. A feature toggle is nothing but just a if statement. I was just messing up with you guys. So but it is a if statement with a twist. So it is an if statement with a twist such that you can dynamically change the behavior of the code at runtime without modifying your code. Imagine that, guys. I let it sink in for a while. It is nothing but an if with a twist where it allows you to dynamically change the behavior at runtime. Let's understand why do we need a feature branch. So imagine you have a master branch which has your latest code and it has the same code as it is deployed in the production. And in a sprint you've been asked to work on two features, feature A and feature B. So as two developers in a team are going to be creating two feature branches, feature A and feature B. They're going to add their code in their own feature branch. They're going to deploy their feature branch in a feature server and test their code in isolation. Whenever they feel that all the tests that they've written for that particular feature passes, they're going to merge it back into the master, and the master has to be tested one more time. So the challenges which you're going to see here is that you're going to see merge issues because you are working on your code in isolation, meaning you're doing the development on your feature branch, you're testing on a feature branch, then you're merging into masters, right? So between that time, you'll see that there might have been many other changes pushed by other developer who might be working on different features. So you're going to see a lot of merge issues, and you may either break their code, or their code might break your feature, right? So you have to test the code multiple times. Once you are testing in your feature server where your code is deployed in isolation, next, after your code has been merged, you have to test against the master branch, making sure that you haven't broken anybody else's code. It's a lot of testing complexity. And on top of that, you have to do a lot of maintenance because somebody has to maintain those feature servers, right? Or you might be sharing a feature server where you are blocking time that, hey, at 1 o'clock, the team member A is going to say that I want to test my feature A, so I need to block some time. Please do not add any changes. Or at 2 o'clock, feature B has to be tested, so that has to be deployed. So somebody has to unroll their code which have deployed for feature A, right? So it comes with, like, you have to do a lot of handholding and synchronization if you don't have a lot of feature servers available. But if you have, then that becomes a maintenance nightmare, because if a big team is working on, say, 50 different feature, you have to provide them 50 different feature server. If everybody has their own server to test their own feature, right? So these are some of the problems with the feature branch model. So people said that, okay, let's go and try out the trunk-based development. So what is a trunk-based development? In trunk-based development, unlike your Git flow model where you create feature branch, you simply fork the code, and whatever you're coding, you're not going to be deploying in a feature server or testing in isolation. As soon as you're done with the code, and you need to remember that you have to merge this code multiple times a day. That is, you have to do small iteration of changes and keep pushing back into the master, right? So as you are working on your code, you are going to be merging your code in master, and the test has to be run against master. So which means that when you're pushing this small iteration of code, you are testing your code multiple times a day on the master branch, making sure that all of the test cases and all of the changes that are being pushed by many users are not breaking because you are pushing something. You are pushing code in small iteration, which is easier to review, and your code is ready for deployment at any given point of time. But there is a problem with this approach, right? As you can see, if Bob and Kelly are working on two separate feature A and feature B, and just before the day of deployment, Kelly is told, hey Kelly, sorry, there has been miscommunication. Your changes are not going to go in tomorrow. If I was Kelly, I would simply freak out, because now I have to go and cherry pick and roll back my code. Cherry picking is not my strong point, but if it is yours, it is still a problem, because sometimes developer also do some form of code refactoring along with the feature that they're working on. So if you cherry pick, you may be unrolling some of the changes in that are already there in production and keeping everything together, right? So to solve this problem of trunk-based development, feature flag was introduced into the game. So now, if you see, the core problem is primarily between the trunk-based development. So you both are familiar with you all are now familiar with both the models, that is the Git flow and the trunk-based model. This is how both the model look like. And the one on the left, which you're seeing, is called scaled trunk-based model, where you still go and create a release branch with a tag. And you can read more about it in trunkbaseddevelopment.com. They have everything in detail, but as you can see here, this is how the primary trunk-based development and the Git flow model looks like. So what is the primary problem that feature flag is solving? Feature flags allow you to deploy your code when you want and release when you are ready. So what that means is you can deploy your code but not show it to your customers whenever you are done with all of the changes. So imagine this: you've been asked to create a customer API with CRUD operations. So create, read, update, and delete. and you know that for finishing all of these resources it's going to take you 4 sprints, and your product owner business says, hey, we cannot show this product or API to a customer until you build all of these 4 operations. So in that case, what will happen is you are going to be working on your create resource on in sprint 1, deploy to production. You are going to work on the read, update and delete on subsequent iteration, and with each sprint end you're going to deploy your code, but it is not visible to the customer. And on the 4th sprint, when you have all of the 4 operations ready, that is when you automatically want to show it to the customer. So this is one of the problems that feature flag allows. Now whatever I explained, this is called dark launch. So it allows you to do dark launches. It allows you to work using feature branches but without the headaches of merges, or without the headache of testing your code multiple times. It also reduces the deployment risk and allows you to instant rollbacks, or it allows you to do gradual degradation of your code. Meaning, if I'm launching 4 features, right, on the day of the deployment, I've launched 4 features, and something goes wrong, and you do not know which feature caused that issue, you can slowly roll back one feature at a time until you see that the code is in stable state. And lastly, it allows you to do a true CI/CD. If you have been following, and mark my word, if you have been following Git flow model, you're not doing a true CI/CD, because you are first pushing your code in your feature branch, deploying that branch, testing that branch, again merging it back into the master and doing the same cycle all over again. That's not true CI/CD. So what are we going to look at? So some of the use cases that I am talking about, feature flag, as I said, it allows you to enable or disable a feature on the fly. It allows you to do dark launches, as I explained. You can continue to deploy your code without showing it to the customer, and you can show it to customer when you are ready. It also allows you to A/B testing. If you have to test, you can allow or block certain group of users. Think of say you have different tiers, right? So you have a subscription model, and you have an API where you only want to allow people to use that particular feature which you have done only for users who belong to California or who belong to Texas states, right? You can also do feature rollback, that is the feature degradation, and you can do a lot of different launching strategies as we're going to see, right? You have canary, blue, green deployment. You can handle all of that pretty easily in this one. So to do all of that, what are we going to use? We are going to use a library called FF4J, which stands for Feature Flipping for Java. It's an open source Apache V2 license, and it has an excellent support for REST API. So if you're coming from non-Java application, the word says feature flipping for Java, but because it has a REST API, you can use it for a non-Java app. If you are from the Java background, you are in luck, because this library has an excellent support for Spring Boot. It has a lot of starter dependency that you can use and directly start using the feature flag with very little code around that. And lastly, and the best feature that is available in this library, and I haven't seen this feature even in the commercial products, it has AOP based toggle, and I'll talk more about that. So in the AOP based toggle, one of the thing that you need to remember in feature flag is that if you're writing feature flags, you have to write additional test cases, because as I mentioned earlier, feature flags are just if else statements. So every time you're writing an if block to test whether a feature is turned on or turned off, you have to write 2 cases, one for the on scenario where your if condition is true, and second is for false scenario. And God forbid if you have nested ifs, like if I have an if and a child if under it, I have to write 4 test scenarios. If there are 3, there are 8. So as you can see, the number of test cases you write is going to exponentially increase, and your code is going to become more and more complex. And whenever you have to remove your feature, because now you have no use for a feature, right? So for example, you added a feature after I added my CRUD application. Now it is exposed to customer, it is public to all, and I want to keep it that way for a very long time. I don't have to have that if else flag in there. At some point of time I have to remove that flag. So when I remove that if else condition, I also have to go back and remove my test cases, right? And the chances are when I'm doing all of this deletion of code cleanup, I may introduce a new bug. So AOP feature in FF4J allows me to write a code without writing an if condition, and this is a very beautiful piece, and I would love to show you how it is done. But this is one feature which is not available in any of the libraries I've seen so far. And on top of this, this FF4J library supports a lot of different release strategies: canary based, blue green, target based, A/B testing, or even you can have an hybrid model as well. It supports all of that. So let's talk about some of the flipping strategy. Role based strategy, as I explained, is pretty straightforward. I can do a role based flip where I can say that show this feature to all of my customer whose customer ID ends in 001. Same way, you have something called single or group flip. So in single or group flip, imagine I have a big team and I have 50 different features that I need to toggle. So I deployed my code and now I have to go and click on button, flip feature 1, show it to everyone, flip feature 2, show it to everyone. So I have to click some button somewhere or maybe an API call 50 times to flip all of that. Instead, FF4J allows you a concept where I can tag that all of these different features are part of one sprint and they're all going in together. When I flip this group flip button, turn on features for all the 50 features. So it allows you to do all of that. You can also do a client and server based gradual rollout. You can do an office hour rollout. You can do a release based feature rollout where you've deployed your code and you want to say that once I've deployed my code, I'm not going to come back and look at it, just automatically show it to my customers on January 1st or maybe 3 months down the line. You can do soft launch, rolling launch, as I've already explained, and you can also extend the flipping strategies from FF4J and create your own personal strategy. So before I jump into the demo, let me show you what this whole feature looks like. So imagine you have a website where you want to show a promotional card on your website where you want to enable a $200 reward cash bonus for your customer in the silver tier. You want to bring them to gold tier, so you need to, obviously give them some form of discount, right? And you want to have the capability that if something goes wrong, I want to turn it off. And those situations may be that you have two teams, a front-end team who's supposed to show the banner and a back-end team who's supposed to be doing the calculation and transferring the money, right? So imagine your front-end team is ready because it's a small change to add a banner, probably a couple of hour job, right? But your back-end team is not ready. So when you deploy, you made an assumption that my backend team is ready, but as soon as you deployed and you were doing your testing, smoke testing, you are seeing that, hey, my application is not working properly because my backend team has not deployed the code. So you want the capability to turn this flag on or off at the whim of. So FF4J allows you to do enable and disable at runtime. And I was talking about the blue, green, and canary. Here's an example of canary releases. So as you can see, developer are going to be working on the latest and greatest changes. My external customer, everybody else in the world, is seeing the version 1 of the code. Let's assume that version 1 of the code has only one button, Google Pay for example, and the team has already deployed second version 2.0, which has Google Pay and Apple Pay. Apple Pay button is there and it has been exposed or soft launch only to my QA and beta users. They have been testing and giving their feedback whether they love it or hate it, but this is not available to the general public at this point of time. So all of this code, version 1, version 2, they are already deployed, but the general public is not able to see the version 2 because they don't have the role or they are not part of the particular target. The developer on the other hand has already deployed a version 3, that is say Amazon Pay, and they have just deployed the code and only QA is able to review that code because they have to do the smoke test if something is deployed to make sure that the other button that public is seeing, the Google Pay, that is not breaking because some new code has been added, right? So only QA has access to version 3, developer can see version 3. Beta users cannot see my Amazon Pay button because it's in the version 3 and they have not been added as a target audience. So FF4J allows you to do all of that using the feature flags. Next is the incremental rollout. This is very important. One good example I'll give you that imagine you are migrating your code from Oracle to MongoDB, and for whatever reason you are not sure whether your new Mongo instance will be able to accept multiple millions of requests at any given point of time. So you want to keep 80% of the traffic going to the Oracle and 20% of the traffic going to Mongo, because you want to see if Mongo is able to handle 20%, then maybe tomorrow I'll increase that load to 40%. So on day 2, 40% of the traffic will be coming to the new application which is accessing the MongoDB, and 60% is on your going to the version which has Oracle. Similarly, as you see that your MongoDB is stable and barely breaking a sweat, you are slowly going to transfer the traffic to the MongoDB version of the code, and when all of the traffic has diverted to your new database, you can safely turn off your Oracle and expunge that data in there. You also have date and time based features, and one good example is think of Thanksgiving timeline, right, where application team want to deploy the code and they want to deploy a promotional message and also want to deploy some form of backend code which is going to process that promotion. I want that promotion to show automatically when the Thanksgiving day start and end 1 week later on its own without me touching the code or redeploying my code. So FF4J is something called a time-based strategy which you can employ. Again, you can also do A/B testing if you want to show $200 cash reward to your silver customer so that they migrate to gold. Similarly, you want to show a $500 reward bonus to your platinum customers so that they can go to the diamond state, and you want to show different numbers to 2 different segments, so you can do that with A/B testing. Or there are some other alternative which I've used. I haven't used Flip, to be honest. I've used FF4J and Toggles. Toggle is also an extremely wonderful library. I like the dashboard of Toggles better than FF4J. FF4J's dashboard, UI dashboard, looks slightly dated. On the right side, you can see some of the commercial one. Launch.ly, Split.io, and Harness. So Harness.io is I've been working on for last one and a half year in the company, and I've also used Launch.ly and Split.io. I tested those. So they're all excellent tools. So I've talked a lot. Let's look at the demo now, how it works. Let's take a look at what we're going to be building today. So in this high level overview design, you'll see 3 components: FF4J server, FF4J DB, and bookstore app. FF4J server is what is going to be interacting with the FF4J DB, which stores all of your feature flags, properties that you're going to be creating, and any sort of event. So event is nothing but an audit trail that will be used to figure out at what point of time a flag was updated or a property was changed. And your bookstore app, so whenever we have a feature flag server, you're going to go on the UI, you're going to create a flag and going to push it to FF4J DB, and bookstore app which is running will get to see the updated value of the state of the feature flag that you've just updated. It can also pull in the properties, though that can be changed at runtime. So think of these properties as externalized property that you can read from Spring Boot or any other Java application, or via an API call to check a state of a value. So this is the UI of FF4J server. As you can see, there is a tab for feature, and here is some information about what sort of feature store, property store you're using. And this is what a feature flag looks like. These are all the flag names. Here I have some monitoring where you can see what flag has changed over a period of time. And you also have an audit trail where you can see when a flag was updated or when some value changed on flag or a property. This is what it's telling that I'm using Spring JDBC. And this is a simple website that I built called Bookstore, which I'm just going to log in with my ID as admin. And once I land on the page, you'll see that it has some information shown on the screen. It just shows a couple of books. It has a header. It has some tabs on the top which are except logout, nothing else work. I have some books, and on the left side you have some user information. There's also a button which tells sign up for monthly. So we're going to be changing all of these values using feature flag, adding some books and changing the header types. Going back to the screen, all of those values are being changed and pulled from the FF4J server where I'm going to be dumping value. And this is what the its open API definition look like. and whatever value I'm changing from the UI, I can change it from the API. It's a very, so for this project I decided not to show you the code from scratch. I will just walk you through the code. These are my two simple application, D2C FF4J server and the D2C commerce app, which is the bookstore app that I've created. So let's take a look at the code and see various sections. It's a very simple code actually. D2C commerce, the bookstore app is slightly more involved, but the FF4J server requires very few files and very few dependencies to make that work. So, and right now for this, I've just added the Postgres database, but you can add any other database, you can add any other cache. So let's take a look at its pom.xml. So in the pom.xml, other than the Spring Boot, one of the major dependencies that you need to add is called FF4J web. But if you're watching this video in future, just go into Maven repository and search what is the latest version that is released out there. The next dependency we're going to add is the Spring Doc Open API Starter Web MVC UI. I've added this instead of Swagger 2 because I'm using Spring Boot 3 and JDK 21, and Swagger 2 is not exactly compatible. I think you have to do some workaround to make that works. So if I use this, I'll be using the Open API 3 version, and you just go ahead and add this and things will work out of box for you. And the next dependency you'll see is the Spring Boot Starter Web MVC. This is a third dependency that you need to add, and there are some Postgres which I'm going to close for now, but you'll need those if you are going to be adding the JDBC, which you'll see that I am actually using. But primarily just FF4J, this Spring Doc and Spring Boot Starter MVC should be going to start your application. Let's take a look at the code now. The first thing you need to add is the FF4J config. So let's go to the top, and at this point I'm going to be let me take out the data source as well. I'll just go and create the FF4J config, add your configuration, and here I'm using data source, right? So I'm going to just comment it out so that I can show you how you can use in-memory database. So I'll just hide these values as well for now, and I'm going to enable these three values. So if I enable these three values, I don't have to add any database. But the problem with this is good for your trial and error, or your trying to set it up first time. But if you want to persist the value of feature flag, and every time you restart a feature server, you would need to use a database for that. First you're going to initialize the FF4J, then you're going to use the feature store, which saves your all the information of feature flags, and property storage where you save all your key value properties, and event repositories where you save all the information which can be used in the audit trail. So these are the three different stores that you can set. There are a couple more for caching and all you can use, but I'm not using caching at this point, so I'm not going to add that. Next is your audit store. By default, this value is actually false. So if you turn the audit store, you would see all the auditing that is being done. That is, anytime I change a flag or anytime I add a brand new flag, you will be able to see that in the audit trail. This is very useful when you are in production and you want to see who turned that flag on or off. If multiple people are going to have access to the FF4J server UI, you want to have some form of audit trails. The last one is called the FF4J auto create. So what happens is there are a number of ways of adding a flag. One is via code, where anytime you start a code, you define that these are my flag and they'll be created for you. So when you turn this auto create on, if a flag does not exist, it is going to create that flag for you by default, but it is going to keep it in the off status. So you can use this auto create by default, meaning that if you don't turn this value on to true, a flag which does not exist will not be created. So meaning that if you're trying to turn on a flag from the code, you will not be able to do that. You have to go and create a flag from the UI or by using an API call to create the flag and then turn the value on or off. But with this value on, I can go ahead and create a flag from the code itself. And beyond that, you just need to return this FF4J. Next, we're going to look at the FF4J web console configuration. So the UI which I had showed you, you have to first go and create a dispatcher servlet that came with the Spring Boot FF4J starter which you had added. So I'm going to be injecting FF4J that I have just created over here. That gets injected, and once you have the dispatcher servlet, you're going to return that, and you're going to register that FF4J server where you need to pass in your FF4J dispatcher servlet which you created in the above code, like line 23 to 27, and you're going to defining the where this server and the UI is going to be available. So I have defined FF4J web console, and I have the JDBC config. So if I would remove the in-memory database and go and turn on the Postgres, I will be using the database to persist those values. And in the controller, you have created some of the feature flag names that I've defined here. One is show web console URL, REST API URL. I'm going to add those, and this auto create, because these do not exist, or if they do not exist, they'll be created. So any feature flag name that I'm going to add over here, if they do not exist, because auto create true is turned on, they will be automatically created for me on the FF4J UI, and over there they'll be turned off. So this AutoGet allows you to create the flag if they do not exist, but keep them in turned off status. And here I am doing that when the application starts up, if these flags do not exist, go ahead and create those flag and add the value as true or false. So I'm setting them, all of them, to true over here. And there's a last one called property store, where I'm just dumping some property value, right? So if you look at this, I'm using the FF4J create feature method, where I have to provide the name of the feature flag. So this create feature is basically doing a dump into my FF4J DB, basically doing an SQL insert. Same way, I am going to be creating 3 more flags in there: feature show REST API, feature show username, and I'm using the feature show username to get a property that I'm going to be creating, where I'm naming that property called Cedric. And if that property exists, I extract that property and put it as a part of the feature show username. So if this flag is turned on, it'll try to print the property username, where the value is being passed as Cedric, and it's going to show up in the line. So this is just a dummy page which will show up for you. You do not have to create this if you don't want to create the feature flag using the code. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to do that. So here I'm creating the flag using the code, and I'm dumping them as a post construct. You can basically go and come up with your own template and format how you want to do that. Some people try to load it from a properties file, a list of feature flags. And this is a simple HTML page that I'm trying to create, where I'm saying that if feature flag show web console is turned on, then show this line HTML append to access the REST API page. Otherwise, do not show that page. Same way I'm doing that. If feature flag show username is turned on, then get the property. Otherwise, just put that the property username does not exist. And that's a basic HTML page that I've created. So let's go and see that landing page, how it's going to look like. So this is my FF4J server, and this is my landing page where it is showing some value. And as you can see, the show REST API URL is turned on, and it is showing the URL. This is the URL. So this particular page which you see here, FF4J web console, if you remember, we added this in the dispatcher servlet. So if you go on the FF4J web console configuration, that's where you've specified that FF4J web console is coming up, and this is my web console, and that was my landing page. So landing page is basically reading all the value from the database, which is the in-memory database, and trying to see whether a feature flag is turned on or off. And I can use this UI page to basically turn a feature on and off, right? So if you see at this point, I have my show REST API URL is turned on. So let me go back to the controller. So in the controller, I'm basically checking if the console is present or not, then go and turn those value on and off. So if it does not exist, but because I have been trying out the code, as you can see, so they already existed, so it didn't turn them default to true. So if I go and delete these, okay, I'm going to go and delete all of these actually eventually and show you everything from scratch. So I'm going to delete REST API URL. The other one is show username as well. I'll go ahead and delete this one and the web console URL as well. So these I've deleted, and the last one is the show username. These are my pre-existing flag which are part of my bookstore. So now as you can see, I have deleted all the flag, and now I'm going to restart the application, and you'll see because this flag did not exist earlier, I've deleted that from the database, right, via UI. So now if I go ahead and restart the application, these flags should again be created for me. So okay, let me go back to the first page. Let's see if the application has started up correctly. So these are the 3 feature flag that should have been created. So I'm going to go back to the landing page because some value might have actually got cached as a part of the web browser. So I'll just go and refresh off, and now I'll just go back and check one more time in my feature flag page. So as you can see, all the 3 feature flag have been created for me. So I should be able to see that the values are properly showing up or not. As you can see, the property username is currently turned off. So as soon as I turn that property on, I should be able to see that the third line which I had added as a part of the code. Let me open this in new tab. So I'm going to remove this URI. And now as you can see, my username value is Cedric is present. So this property Cedric also I created earlier, so which is why it is showing up. And as you can see, it is basically doing a FF4J check. So if this flag is turned on, then the URI to access the test code is going to show up, the HTML snippet which I've added, right? So if I go and fix this value and I'm going to show this, it is going to show up. But if I just go and flip any of the values off without deploying any of my code, that particular line is basically going to hide. Right, so I'm just going to go, sorry, I had turned on the wrong URI. So let me just go and make sure if I have the values correct. Yep. So I'm going to turn the show web console URL. That's the one which I had turned off. So as you can see, that value is now completely gone. Same way, if I go and turn on or turn off other values, so I'm going to turn off show username, and this username Cedric is going to hide now. So this is a very basic example of how you are going to use the flag, and you're going to be creating the flag from the code. This one is a pretty useful technique that you can use, but ideally you should be either using a UI or an API call to do a complete CI/CD flow. As you can see, all the values that I'm looking at over here are showing up correctly. I just created this very basic page, so don't message me that this is not a right way to create HTMLs. This is just for the demo purposes. So again, now I'm going to delete these values, and each time I'm going to do that, it'll show me that particular data that I'm trying to append via HTML, it's going to go away. And this is a problem when you're going to be doing that with the in memory. Every time you're going to do that, those values will go away. So now I went ahead and deleted the value. As you can see, it shows in memory, two values are in present, right? So in memory, that's because I have created the FF4J server as an in-memory server when we were creating the event store in the FF4J config, right? So all of these values are now added, and now I'm going to turn this show web console URL on again, and I should be able to see all of the values showing up. Okay. And if I just go and turn the values off, all of these values will be turned off for me. So if I go back and check, so if I turn all of these values off again, and restart the application again, all of these values, if they do not exist, they're going to get created and the values will be turned on for you. So going back, I want to put in FF4J database site because I want to save some value. So I created a Docker image for Postgres. And if you go in the documentation, it will give you all the table that you need to create. Basically, it's a script that you can just execute. And this is how its table is going to look like. It has like 3, 4, 5 tables, and the audit table is which will tell you when a particular feature flag was turned on or off and at what point of time. Then you have the feature flag. This is which contain all of the name of your feature flag and the properties and different type of roles. I have created two roles, role admin and role user. These roles are not roles to log in onto the FF4J library. This is the script for creating those data definition for FF4J in Postgres. So you can just go and download from the website FF4J documentation and just execute this once you have created your Postgres server using Docker. So that's what I've done. I've created two separate databases, FF4J and one database for my bookstore. And this is if you want to create any custom properties, FF4J properties. This is the audit and has various names. So you don't have to worry about these. You can basically go and do all of that. So right now, if you see in the properties file, I had created the Cedric, and in the monitoring, monitoring was another thing I forgot to tell you about, right? So this is how my monitoring looks like. So this will tell you how many times a particular feature flag has been used. So between show web console and show username, they have been called equally, and this shows that these have been called thrice. And if you are using some form of repatriation from host, meaning that if you're deploying on multiple hosts and are distributing the traffic across them, you can see how many times a particular flag on a particular host has been used. So it's a very basic one, very rudimentary UI. If you want, I would prefer to create my own UI using the APIs and pulling the values. This is a time series chart again, which has been created. I believe the code might be using d3.js, but I haven't looked at the code in detail. But these charts are pretty easy to create. And in the audit table, you can see when a particular property was turned on and off, and from what host and what was the source of those. So as you can see, it gives you the date and time, which is very, very useful. And anytime you're going to do that, you would want to use this in production. Trust me on that. So right now, these are the three different feature flag that exist. And now what we'll do is we will be going into and create another feature flag. So I want to create a new feature flag for test one. This is another way of creating the flag. This is the preferred way, I would say, if you're going to be using FF4J. Either use this. If you're a small company, you would want to use this, and you would want to go and create a feature flag and then define how you want to use that feature flag. So basically, you're creating a feature flag in advance. So your product owner will say, I'm going to create a feature flag, and this is the definition, and you guys are going to incorporate that in your code. So I created a feature flag, red button, and now I want to add some property, for example, right? So these are just key value properties that I want to read. So in my previous code, I had created username called Cedric. As you can see over here, this value Cedric is being pulled from this location, right? And at any given point of time, if I change this value, say added 111, you will immediately see that value in your application code. So this is very useful for scenario where you say launched a promo code for getting 25% discount and you would change the values. You would want to come back to this property files because that promo code might have been leaked to others, right? You would find all these things happening on Slick Deals and various other coupon code sites. Same way, again, these I can again go back. I'm going to replace the value back to what it was, 222, because my value has been updated. I will immediately see those changes happening over here, as you can see. Now let's go and check out the database. So I have this Postgres database running over here. And all of these values right now that you're seeing are changing this on the screen are happening because of the in-memory database, right? So if I execute my FF4J database, I'm simply connecting to the database using this Postgres URL. I'm passing the username password as Danny, and I'm just creating a data source bean over here. And now I need to inject this bean into the FF4J config. So if you see here, right now all of these values are for in-memory, which means anytime I save the state of the flag, they have to be they'll be reconfigured one more time when I start the application. The state will be lost, but when I add this data source, it is going to make that value of the flag permanent, and even if I restart my application, the flag state is not going to change. So I've just added the data source, and now I need to inject this data source bean, right? So this is the bean which got injected in the FF4J, and at this point I need to enable the lines from 25 through 27. And this is nothing fancy. You can go in the documentation and see how I'm just taking it from there. And here I've injected the property store, feature store, and the event repository. I'm saying that save any changes in the data source, and I'll restart the application. And now you will see there are few more flags which will be added that I've already been using. So they will start showing up. So at this point, if I go back to my feature flag, so first thing is you'll see that Spring JDBC was there, and now all of these extra flag, and this is the current state that is saved in the database. So when I turn this feature flag off, I will see that all the values are now gone. And if I restart the application, the state is not going to change, right? So if I go back over here and all the values are saved and I refresh, the state is still off. So until I come back and change it over here, these changes are not going to go back into the database, right? So my database, as I mentioned, is running. If my database is not running, you'll start seeing an error. And if I turn off the value, the state is going to get saved back into the database. So now I'm going to be talking about how to work on the other side, that is the bookstore app. So let's take a look at the D2C commerce app. So setting up the bean is exactly the same. The bookstore app is supposed to read from the FF4J database. So the FF4J config setup, if you look at that, let me open the file FF4J config. If you look at this, I'm doing the exact same setup as I did for the FF4J server. So if you look at this particular file in FF4J server. This is exactly the same FF4J config, and basically what I did is I just copied this file and just pasted in the D2C commerce app. Other than that, there are a couple more beans which I've added. One more thing I want to point out is that you can basically do all of these using the UI as well. You don't have to set up a DB. If you want to directly use a UI, you can use that, right? You don't have to rely on just doing a DB setup. This bean is the for setting up the JSP tags, which I have introduced in my time leaf. So with that, what I want to showcase is that using FF4J is not only for Java application, but it is also for any of the front-end applications, any UI application, including JSP. For React and Angular, of course, you can use the API call. The other class I want to show you is the book user DB config. So if you look at this place, I have a bookstore, and inside that bookstore, I have created two more tables called user. So these are the different type of user that I've created with different roles, and they've all been set to true. And for each of these users, I've just encoded the password and saved it in here. And along with that, I have a user region, another attribute I've specified, and I'll showcase why I created this region. This is to showcase a couple of more ways you can configure your feature and your targets in the feature flag, right? So you have a state that is assigned to a user. And now if you go back and look into the controller, I'm just using a hash book to get the list of books. And then I'm simply adding a couple of model attributes, and I've created different services to evaluate different features. And this is a very important one, giveaway monthly. So if I go back to my website, so sign up monthly, this is enabled using AOP, which is a unique feature available only in FF4J, not in any other library. So at this place, all of these values are being passed as a model attribute going back to the web page. So if I open my FF4J UI, you'll see these are all the flag which have been pre-created for you. So the first one we're going to look at is the show logo. And if I edit, it has some extra values. So I'm going to simplify this and remove some of the permission just to show you how a basic flag works. And then I'm going to add different target and different way to evaluate a flag using different strategies. One of them is the username, which you will be seeing over here. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this for now and go back and show you. So right now, if you see this, I'm logged in as admin, and role has been, so this role and customer name is being pulled out for this admin. What is a role? I'm pulling out that role from the user role. Same way, I'm looking at the state equal to California, and there is a discount, and there's a sign up for monthly. So these are currently off, you won't see them. And I'm going to talk about giveaway towards the last. Giveaway is that sign up for monthly button which is showing up. So the first thing we need to do is I want to add a logo on the bar. Add the logo on the bar. The book service, first thing I'm doing is I'm saying this, add these 4 books. These are hardcoded books with some images. And I've injected the FF4J, which I created in the FF4J config. And using that, I'm showing that show only 3 books if the feature flag is turned off. So once the books are shown in the time leaf, I added some attribute processor. So if you see the FF4J dialect bean which I had created, this is how it is being used. And one thing which I'm injecting over is I'm hard coding that my IP address is 00 to showcase another release strategy, right? So I've just created enable and disable attribute processor. If you're not familiar how to create a GSP tag and how to create the evaluator, you can probably look up on Google and find it out. So in the header, I am defining a namespace and adding my tag leaf for FF4J, where it is pulling all of the information from these 3 files. And on line number 13, you will see I'm using the tag saying that FF enable show logo. This is the name of the feature flag, show logo, that I'm using here. So when I'm passing this, I am specifying that check whether this particular flag is on or off. So let me first remove the different strategies and show you how this thing will work. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this off, remove every strategy, and let me pick as none, and we'll add back and see what it exactly does. I'll also remove permissions. So this is a very simple flag with no extra filter, no rules, right? So I'm just going to, I made it pretty simple. Forgot to save. So I'm going to remove this, click on valid. They should have called it valid instead of save, actually, instead of valid, right? And one other piece which I need to do is, so now I'm going to just turn it on. And if I go back to my application, you'll see that this, oh, got logged off. Let me log in again. So admin, and you'll see that banner is now turned on, right? If something goes wrong, I can turn it off and this banner will be turned off. So this is a very simple flag which I added. So as you can see, a different strategy that I had talked about, right? Enable, disable at runtime. This is the basic feature without any filters, without any rules, logic. I just want to turn something on or off. I can enable this. I'm going to turn this particular one on, and you see it comes back. So this was related to the first strategy that we had seen. Next, I want to add a copyright information at this footer bar, right? So we're going to follow the same way. I'm first going to show you simple one, then we're slowly going to make it more complicated. So same way, this is also as I added a tag over there, and I specified if the show copyright feature flag is on, then add the copyright information. So again, I'm going to do some cleanup here, and I'll talk about this expression strategy, filter strategy as we move along. So I've right now just removed everything. And now if you refresh my screen, I should start seeing a copyright information. So you see that copyright Dinesh Arora has been added and it is now showing up. So similarly, if you want to turn on or off, but the challenge is you do not want to turn on all of these flag one by one in production, right? You would typically want to tie up multiple flags together and want to turn on all of these flags at the same time with just one place. So for that, you have something called toggle group, where what you can do is you can simply create a toggle group and assign these toggle groups to different feature flag. So if you see here, I assigned the sprint one, right? I have already get it. If I just save this value, sprint one, I'm going to remove this right now, and I'll remove this as well. Okay. This is how your typical setup would look like, but I don't want to go and turn every feature on. Imagine you are doing deployment of multiple microservices. You do not want to turn this on one at a time, right? So what you'll do is you group them, saying that all of these feature flag belong to the same release, and you're going to tag them using their group ID, whatever you want to call it. I'm calling it sprint one. You can call it ABC, whatever you want to do in there, right? And now right now these are turned off. If I go in here, you'll see that both these feature flag are turned off. Now I want to turn these both flag on together at the same time. So I can go back to my toggle group, click on sprint one tag, and then over here I want to pick sprint one, and here I want to enable them. So as soon as I click save, these two flags will be turned off automatically and all of my flags are turned on. See here? So this makes my job a lot easier when I have multiple flag across multiple services and I want to turn all of them on at the same time. Now I want to look at show discount, show logos. Say you have some dependency on each other. Show copyright should be turned on when show logo is turned on, or you want to tie two of these together, right? Two of the flag together. Oh, let me show you the grouping strategy, target group. If you look at these tables, I don't have any roles defined. The roles which we are going to pick up are based on the application. So I've defined that I have a user with admin role and a user with the user role, QA with the tester role, right? So I want to enable this particular feature, show copyright, to a specific role. So for example, I'm logged in as admin and I want to assign this to admin role only, right? So I just add it to the admin role. So now if I go back, I logged in as admin. So these two features will be shown to me. As you can see, I just refresh, everything looks good. But if you see on this page, right, you'll see that the role admin has been added. Now, if I go and log out and log in with a different username whose role is not admin, so I'm going to use user. So this is tied to role as role underscore user, and as you can see, it was not showing up. If I log in as QA, you'll see that the copyright is missing over there, right? If I go back to admin again, admin, and now you'll see that the copyright is showing up for me, right? Similarly, at any given point of time, I can do a gradual rollout. I can then roll out to more users. I'm going to rolling out to QA now. So if you see, QA is assigned a role tester, so I need to change this to tester, actually not QA. So role tester, it valid, and I should be able to see two values in the role admin and tester. So now if I log out, I will log in as QA. I should be able to see it now. The copyright is still showing up. Now I'll log out and log in as user. Copyright information will not show up for me. You see here? So that is how you can filter the who can see your application, who can see your feature. So if I add role user, I should start seeing copyright information. You see here? So I can enable, disable targets on the fly. This is for gradual rollouts, right? Let's look at a couple more strategies. So let's say there is a dependency, as I was talking earlier, right? A dependency between copyright and logo. Okay. So for that, let's take a look at the strategy. And here I want to use expression strategy. So what does expression strategy mean? It says that expression equal to dummy or foo. I'm going to remove this and I'm going to say expression show logo. So now when show logo feature flag is on, only then copyright will evaluate to true. So as you can see, right now they're both on, and I am going to check it. Yes, both the values are showing up, the image and the copyright information. And now I'm going to turn show logo off. Show logo is off, copyright is still on, right? But we have the strategy that if show logo is off, copyright should not show because it's dependent, right? So as you can see, both of them got turned off. Even though my copyright is turned on, because my show logo is actually off, show copyright is dependent on it. So it is also not going to show the value of copyright. And as I turn it on, both the image shows up, so copyright will also show up. So this is a very useful strategy where you may have a front end and back end going at the same time, and you want to start showing the front end only if a back end feature is implemented. So let's take a look at another one called client filter. Here I am simply passing that if my IP address is 0000, so if I want to give access to only one machine, for example, right, only then show logo should show up. So this 00, as I mentioned, I have hard coded the value, right? So right now it will show up. I didn't have a way of changing my IP address easily, so I'll just update that the granted application is set to 001 and my IP is 000, so this should not show up for me. So both the feature flags will be turned off, the image and the copyright. So this is another useful strategy that you can use. And if I put not won't work, so let me go and fix that value. You can add or not, but I think I don't remember if I've defined it correctly. That might be wrong. I'll just make it valid for now. 0000. So everything should start showing up for me now. Looks good. So everything is start showing up. So let's look at few more different strategies. So let's take a look at what should we take a look. So if I go back to my application in the book controller, okay, let me show you a code. All of these, most of the values which you've seen are coming from the JSP tag. But if you want to do it from the backend, you would simply be looking at FF4J.getProperty. So these are the two values which I'm actually getting the value from the property. It's just a key value pair like you would have defined in your YAML file. I want to make it dynamic, so which is why I am going to be going on creating this. So now if I have to change value on the fly, I can go and change from the UI. I don't have to restart the application, right? So if you see here, the discount and coupon code have been defined, right? And then I'm evaluating that discount service. In the discount service, I'm saying that these are the two value discount, and I'm passing this value in a class called discount, which has two attributes, discount and coupon code, and I'm passing this as a model attribute to the front end. And using these two values, if the feature flag is on, it's turned on, we should be seeing a discount ribbon showing up. So I've evaluated the value, I've got the values, right? And now in the discount code over here, I've said that if show discount is turned on, then show me the attribute value, coupon code and discount. So I'm going to go over here and turn this one on. I'll remove this region flipping strategy. I'll talk about it later. Let me just first show you how that value looks like. So let me edit this and I will remove these values, probably save them. So I'm going to turn this on. I have removed the strategy and now I should see a ribbon over here which is take 25% off and use coupon code DW25 off. So over here, this is our show. Say something goes wrong, right? Your coupon code has been leaked and people are misusing it, or you want to get more customer in, you can change the value on the fly. So right now 25, and as soon as I refresh the screen, I should start seeing $35 off coming in over here. So same way, if I had to change the code as well, coupon code, because something has been leaked, maybe this was only for premium user. Okay, so let's look at another one. So I was showing you the region based, right? So user and admin, they belong to Arizona and California states. So say I want to show this discount ribbon only to people who are from Arizona and California, I would be using another strategy. So let's take a look at the code. So we're looking at discount strategy. So let me go back to feature and the code is exactly the same. I just want to show you the strategy for the region base. So I'm going to pick regions strategy, and in the regions strategy, this is the default value. The keyword environment is part of the application, part of the FF4J, right? You are not going to change that. So I've specified that for role user state equal to Arizona. For Arizona customer, show this ribbon over here, the discount ribbon, right? If I log out and log in using a different user, so admin is from California, right? So if I log in over here, that ribbon is going to go off. That discount will only show for people who belong to Arizona. And if I want to gradually roll out to more states, I can simply go and add California, and now application will start showing the ribbon one more time. You can do the rollout for other things. Few more strategy I want to show you is the one is the pre-release. I think we saw code earlier. If you have a new author and you want to do a pre-release of his book, so this particular piece, if you remember the first time I showed you the get class, so I have 4 books defined, and if the pre-release feature flag is turned on, then show list of 4 books, otherwise return list of 3 books. So right now we are seeing 3 books and I want to turn this feature flag on. So we'll just go back again. So the 4th one will come right after the 3rd book. So this is the check I'm doing. So FF4J.check for the feature flag name. And if I turn this on, these 4 values will be turned on. Otherwise it will be turned off. I'll only see 3 books. So I go back here and I'm going to edit this, remove this strategy. We'll see shortly what is the office strategy. This is a very interesting one actually. I love this one. So I'm just going to make it first a simple flag, show you what the behavior is supposed to look like. So if you see here, 4 books are not showing up because that flag is turned on. And now we'll see another strategy. So imagine you want to show this 4th book for pre-release only during certain day and certain times. So if you add this strategy called office hours strategy, you'll see you can have times when it should show from what to what range. So here it is from 8 to 12, 1:30 to 6. You can also define public holidays. It doesn't know about public holiday of your country, so you can specify whatever values you want. So we want to do it only for Monday. Today is Friday, right? As you can see on the top right corner, it's Friday, March 22. And I want to show it only for Monday. So even though it is on, I've specified from Monday, show it from so and so time. So as soon as I do that, that book will be gone. And now if I change this to Friday, as you can see, it's pretty late for me. It's 1:20. So it takes a long time for me to make videos and work long hours. So if you are still watching this and you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. So I'm going to change this to Saturday, and the timing. So one thing you need to make sure is you are typing in the spelling of correctly. I have done that mistake a number of times. So I'm going to change this to from 2 to 3 a.m. right? So if I go back over here, you'll see that it doesn't work for Saturday also, right? Because right now the date is Friday. So if I go and change this date one more time, so I'm going to change this to Friday now. So it should be between 1 and 3. So as soon as do 1 and 3, you should start seeing the 4th book over here. So think of this, if you have a chatbot which should only be shown to customer when your actual customer service is offline and you want to start showing chatbot, you can use this strategy, right? And this officer strategy is going to help you do releases if you want to show coupon code from certain day to certain time only, and automatically turn that feature off. You can do that. So for all of these, what you're seeing, right, you're going to see this if else block. The problem with the if else block is, and this is a issue with any feature flag library you are going to use, not just FF4J. So somebody has to go and write if else code, and then you have to write test cases for. So for just with one if I write a test case for this, I have to write two test cases. One where if is set to true, and other where if is set to false. And if it is a nested if, I have to write 4 test cases. For 3, I have to write 8 test cases. So as you can see, the number of test cases are going to increase exponentially. And then when you turn this feature flag off, because you don't want to keep this feature check happening, these are supposed to be temporary flags. So number of test cases are going to continue to increase. And if you don't add test cases, depending on your company requirement, they may have sonar check which will not allow you to merge the code. It'll say that your branches are not covered all the way. So when you're cleaning up the flags, it makes your code cleaner. So use this as all of these flags as temporary flag, where you want to turn a feature on and off. Once you know that your code is fully baked in, somebody has to go and clean up this code. I always want to return all the 4 books, so I have to delete this if else block. But FF4J has a feature for AOP based, where I'm not using any sort of if else condition. So as you can see, as I turned it off, my sign changed from sign up from monthly to sign up for weekly. And as you have seen in my monthly service, there is no if else block. If you see here, there's no if else block. So I'm saying that implement an interface, that's all in there, right? If you look at giveaway over here, you'll see there's an annotation called add flip. So this is an annotation which comes from FF4J, and I'm saying that flip the particular behavior. If the flag is on, then return the bean called gateway weekly. Otherwise, return the bean called gateway monthly. Right? So as this one is turned on, if I turn it off, then giveaway monthly will be given. So to understand this, so when the feature flag is on, then serve the alternate bean. And while I've been doing this, I wanted to show you that all the flag which I've been editing, all of their counts, how many time it has been hit, and out of all of these feature, how many are being used. So one of the thing which you can make use of this is, if you want to retire some of the flag and you want to see if the flag is not being used, then you know that flag is now useless because there's a 0% coverage, right? So now if you'll see, these numbers are supposed to change as many times they are being evaluated, right? So show logo is being used the most because I started with that one, and every time I'm turning it on, turning another one on, all of these are still getting evaluated. So that has been evaluated so many times. So again, if I'm going to change this, you should see the number increase. 33, 38 are the two. So it is 35 and 40. Right? So it is all real time. Similarly, the other values which you're going to see here is the how many time what user has been hitting, right? So that information can be looked up over here. So if you look at admin, you have user. So I'm going to just log out and log in one more time for user. I have to refresh this a couple of times. So user has been evaluated for permission defined role, and this is 21. So now if you see, user is 54 and 43. So all of the values which you're seeing over here are being evaluated at real time, and all of these are being done from API, because FF4J SDK which you're using, that is basically making an API call. And these are some of the bar graph. I hate this one because the color combination, I'm not sure if you're able to see it on your screen, but it's all in white. I don't know what we're going to do. And this is our audit screen, at what point in time a feature was toggled on or off, right? So you can do that. The other piece I want to show you is in the home controller. So there are a number of ways I mentioned, right? You can create a flag. One is as you can say, create the flag from the code. Second is you can go and create flag from it, or if you want to import or export the config. So what you'll do is you're going to download this file and you can upload this file to another environment. Say all of these information, whatever you're testing, is only on your dev environment, and now you're satisfied with the latest setup that these are the flag that has to be turned on and that this has to be introduced. Then you want to transfer that same configuration to your, say, SID server or prod server. You can just export and import, or the third option is you can just take all of the value which is there in the database and write a insert script or update script. You can do that The third way is you can use the API calls. Make a list, will be a custom CI pipeline call where you can make a list of all the flag which are being introduced, make an API call and update that flag in whatever environment you want, right? So all of the value. So if I'm the production, I now want to import this, the same flag will be added, but they will all be in the disabled status, or whatever state I've been creating in the lower environments. It will be simply imported. So if you see here, these are all these strategies which will be assigned, but they will all be in the disabled state at that point of time. The other way, as I was explaining earlier, if you want, the fourth way is to insert the record directly into the database, but you have to be very careful how you are changing the values. If you make a spelling mistake or you fat key something, you might be breaking the whole database. So I will not suggest this, but this is one other way which I found out. This is not documented in the documentation. This is something I found out when I was doing the setup, and I realized that this whole thing can be updated just using a SQL script. Because if you are just connecting your application to the database and the application is going to read the value face, why do you need a front end? I already have an API. I don't need the UI itself, right? Some people don't like to work with the APIs. So if I change the value to 55, so this should update the value, and with that I should be able to see changes directly on this. Yep. So if you see, the value has been changed, so you can just update the DB and do with that. If you have already created properties and assign the different sort of filters to that, and you're just changing the values, it should be okay. But you should try and avoid creating feature flag from scratch just using a SQL script. So similarly, these are Arizona and California. So if I go back to, I think it's defined in the FF feature. So if I go back and change to something else called NC, for example, and I want to update this, the value will be directly updated, and I should be able to see the third state over here. So these are some ways which you can use to move from one environment to the other. Or you can probably also add another variable called environment, right? So as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of ways to do that. And let me go back to the UI. The fourth one is API. So this is what I would prefer. If you have a very baked in CI/CD process, you should be using the APIs as a part of your CI/CD. Deploy the code, run your smoke test before the feature flag is turned on, then make the API call to update. So I'll just give you a demo. Whatever I've done from the UI can be done directly from the API. So all of the APIs resources have been defined here, right? So if you want to just look at the stores, I'm going to show you one simple one. I want to get all of the features. So these are all the features which have been defined. As you can see, just make an API call and you should be able to get all of the values. Right, so we have the show REST API URL, and if I want to just get the information about, let's take a look at show low actually, right? If I want to get more detail about a particular feature flag, I can simply say, give me the value for this, and it'll tell me whether it is enabled or disabled. And if I want to update the values, say turn on or turn off, or change the flipping strategy, so I'm going to go into put. I can do put, or I can just do disable. I'll show you with put. So it says that these are all the different values that are defined. So with that, if I want to just input statement, and I'll just leave everything as is. Now what I'm doing is I'm turning this show logo to false using an API call instead of doing it from the UI. If I the UI, you should see that show logo has been turned off over here. If I turn it back to true, I'm going to send this. This makes the same changes in the database as I did with the UI. I'm going to refresh the screen. You'll see that it has been turned on. This is how you can make use of AI. I didn't show you caching, but you can use any of the popular caches. This video would have gone much longer. And if you are going to be adopting the feature flag, whether it is FF4J or anything else, few things which you need to keep in mind. One, feature flag become instant tech debt. So you should always go and clean up short-lived flag, which is where I was talking about. You need to remove your if else condition, right? Anytime you are defining any of these flags. So if you have all of these different flags defined, you're going to have these many if conditions everywhere. So you have to go and turn this off, remove any sort of strategy and make those changes. Then you also need to make sure that they are cleaned up from your database. They don't exist anywhere. You can use an API call to delete those, and then you have to go and move the if else condition and along with the test cases as well. So any if else condition you have done, any extra test case which you have added, those have to be cleaned up. So that is why it becomes an instant debt, right? So the fourth book which you added, now that author is published and it is not he's not releasing his book in the pre-release mode, it is now available as a general thing. So I will, if I'm turning this feature flag off, right, I'm removing that feature flag because I don't need that feature flag. I should be able to see all the 4 books regardless of any flag. So now when I delete this code, I also have to make sure that I delete my test cases. So always go and clean up your flag. You should have engineering management. You must know how it's going to impact your flag and who is the owner of the flag, who are your target. Also, to fix a defect, team must know what was the last state. So with that, I'll just end this demo for now.